Okay. 7:01. All right, I would like to call this, wait, hold on, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I had to make sure we had enough.
I was gonna say.
All right, I'd like to call this meeting Tuesday, September 7th, Parks and Recreation Commission to order at 7:01 p.m. Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Oh God, I don't know if I can stand it. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which
it
it
stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Okay. Item number 3, roll call.
If I may.
Oh yeah, sure. What's up?
Chairperson, we have a lot of severe weather that is on our way to us. So there is a possibility, and just want to make sure everyone is aware that there is a possibility that if it hits us, we could have some power interruptions and this meeting could be, end abruptly. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that. If you all have trampolines in your backyard, please go out and secure them right now.
None over here.
I'm gonna go let the puppy outside really quick.
Yeah.
All right, Commissioner Sutherland.
I am here at 31520 Schoolcraft in Fraser.
Commissioner Miller.
Here in Fraser, 15762 Exeter Court.
Commissioner Cook.
Here in Fraser. I give my address. Do you have to give your address?
Well, I don't know. Good question.
For a roll call, it's only required to say if you're within the city or if you're outside of the city. When it comes down to citizen participation, that's where they ask for the actual address of the citizen who's addressing the commission.
All righty.
Commissioner Hunt.
I'm here in Fraser and I'm having trouble with my, there I am. Okay, here in Fraser.
Okay, all right. Commissioner Rollins.
Here in Fraser.
And Commissioner Kelly here in Fraser. Okay, item number 4, approval of the agenda for September 7th, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Commissioner Sutherland, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Motion carries. Item number 5, approval of minutes from August 2nd, 2021. With the exception of some of the spelling errors, I'll make it a motion to approve the minutes from August 2nd, 2021.
I'll second it. Echo.
Motion made by Commissioner Kelly, seconded by Commissioner Hunt. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Motion carries. Item number 6, volunteer group reports. Updates from Fraser First Barrier Club and McKinley Barrier Fair Park. Anyone? I don't see. Laura. Hi, Laura.
Hi, everyone. Laura Lessich here. Sherry has a conflict. She'll be joining later and can bring you an update on the Fraser First Booster Club happenings during citizen participation, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Item number 6B, fix the fort. I reached out to the group, but I didn't get any responses. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that there are no updates right now. All right, item number 7, report on current event farmers market.
Farmers market is set for this Saturday. Hunter and I were talking today about our vendors. We've got a good amount. Not quite as many as last time. We're still waiting to hear back, but I want to say we probably have at least 15 vendors. We also have the DJ balloon twister coming back, and we also have Rachel Augusti, who does the science in the park, coming to do like a science activity craft with the kids. So that will be exciting. The only other thing that I had in regards to the farmers market was I had sent an email about the balance for the account of the farmers market in the end of August, and got a response back that in the general fund for the farmers market, there was a balance. Well, there's 3 accounts, Vince, and you can feel free to jump in and correct me if I'm wrong at any point. But the general fund, the account 278, which was the escrow account for the farmers market, that there was a balance of $6,904.83. When I had received the ledger balance for the farmers market in April, the balance was $9,143.40. So I just wanted to bring that up because there's a short difference of $2,238.57. So we haven't spent that amount of money for the farmers market this year. I mean, I think we probably, that I can recall, have spent like $130 for birdhouses and some raffle tickets and things like that. So I just wanted to bring that up so that we could look into that further to kind of try to figure out maybe what happened there. But other than that, nothing else new going on with the farmers market. Our last one will be October 2nd. So if you have any ideas for anything that you would like to do, or if anyone would like to volunteer to put something together, Hunter and I were talking about having maybe like a pumpkin Olympics kind of event, because this year was an Olympic year. So we thought maybe pumpkin shot put, pumpkin bowling, something like that. But we could definitely use some help if anyone would be willing to take that on. So that's all I got for the farmers market.
Okay,
If I could jump in on the
sure.
balance.
Yep.
I did send an email out on that, and I want to differentiate the escrow liability fund from the budget. So the escrow liability account, it's a liability account, and it's usually built up through donations that you might, or monies that you raise that go into that account. And typically that account goes year to year, you know, and I'm hearing varying reports on that, on the ways that's handled. Typically, I believe, you know, many cities close that money or use that money year to year. So it's not carried into the next year.
For any type of liability account?
Well, it can be handled differently. A liability account can carry forward. I think it comes down to the particular city. But, you know, I want to be clear that a liability account is not a budget.
Right.
That's monies that are raised, you know, again, by, let's say, the Recreation Commission or, you know, what have you, and that money build up. That's not part of expenditures. And that's what I explained in the email.
Right.
As far as if you're saying last you knew that there was 9,000 in that one particular account, I'll have to go back and research. What I'll have to do is look at the history and see what happened. I know that the auditors from the prior period for the audit of June 30th, 2020, closed those accounts out to zero, because their take was you shouldn't be carrying liabilities, you know, in those escrow accounts year to year. My discussion with the city manager indicated that there are cities who do carry those accounts year to year, because that's monies that build up.
Mhm.
So I gathered that cities handled that a little differently, and so we determined we will put the money back that the auditors had cleared out from the prior period. So
Right.
if there's a $3,000 difference that you've identified, Dana, I will have to go back and, look at the history and see what happened there. And I could update the Recreation Commission. I could send you an email on that.
Okay. Yeah, because
So
this,
that is-
what I have is I have the ledger for revenues for the farmer's market for the 278 escrow account titled Farmer's Market. It has an opening date of, let me see, July 1st, 2018. And I mean, it has activities in it, but the end balance date is October 5th, 2020. So that would have been during COVID, right? Yeah, sorry, getting my years messed up, right? I can't believe it's about to be 2022. But yeah, so it has a end date of 10/5/2020 with a balance of $9,143.40. And the other day, the same titled account in your email, Vince, had a balance of $6,904.83. So that's a $2,238.57. So it looks like this might be the type of account you were talking about where it wasn't being touched year to year. If it opened in July of 2018 and then had an ending balance in 2020, it doesn't look like anything got moved based on what I have. And you had actually provided this to me, so I can give it back to you or send you a copy or whatever you might need. Just let me know. I'm happy to obviously share. But I mean, we have not spent, to my knowledge, anywhere close to $2,200 on anything. Like I said, the only thing that I can think of is maybe about like $130 that we have spent on the farmer's market this year. So
what I can do for the Recreation Commission is tomorrow, when I get in, I can run a history. I'll run a general ledger history of that account, and I can send it to you.
Okay.
So you can see. I mean, I'll go back, I go back to 1718. I'll run a history so you can see exactly what's going on with that account.
Do you want me to send you a picture too of what I have, and I can copy the rest of the commission on it? Just, I mean, so you know what I'm looking at, even if your numbers come up different, just so that we all are looking at the same thing.
Why not send that? Why not send that, in an email? You could send it tomorrow or whatever.
Okay.
Not tie us up here, but yeah, send that to me, and I'll run a general ledger history and provide that information to you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would also just caution that even though, Dana, whatever expenses that you have incurred directly, there might be other ancillary expenses that might be coming out of that account to cover for DPW and whatever other expenses there may be. So, and I'm sure Vince will make sure he covers all of those things as well. So it's
Right.
not just, we paid Ludicky to do balloon twisting, or we paid for, water, or we paid for this, or we paid for that. There might be other expenses that you might not be considering that the city would cover, that would come out of those accounts. So
Well, it looks like the only other type of activity each year would be about $1,000 though, based on the ledger that I'm looking at. So that would still leave about $1,000 this year alone, unaccounted for. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but it doesn't look like historically that would have been the case. So, Vince, I'm grateful for you to look into that, and we'll see how it all shakes out. I just want to make sure that we can account for it.
Yeah, one thing about accounting is the general ledgers, the history will give you the detail. So, when I run the general ledger histories, it is what it is. The numbers
Right.
are what they are, and the descriptions are what they should be, as long as when items were posted, the descriptions were put in there with the posting, which I would think, you should be able to determine or ascertain what the item was that was booked. So that's why I say I'll run a history of it, and we'll see what what that difference is, if any, how it shakes out.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Vince.
You're welcome.
Okay, I guess next item, 7A1, the dog park funds.
Right, so that was part of the email that I had sent too, just based on the paperwork that I was given for the farmer's market. I mean, there's even something up, you can see it right here. It's like a handwritten note in this book that talks about the ledger balance, and then everything. Sales from masks made by Nancy Berube, all fabric was donated as well as time to make them, with funds going to the dog park. So, I mean, everything that I can see in here is based on that. It looked like that isn't maybe necessarily how it works, based on your email, Vince. So again, I mean, I think that that's something that we probably need to talk about and figure out how that's going to work, and if that is how we're going to work it, if we can work it.
Again, if I could jump in on the accounting side of it. So, I can't speak to that ledger. I could tell you, what the budgets are. I can show you what the historical budgets were, and I can show you what the activity has been, and I can show you the general ledgers. I can't speak to ledgers that, were recorded or drafted. So, as far as the numbers and the email that I sent, in terms of the budgeted items, the $12,000 I mentioned for programming, and a specific GL. Now that's a budgeted item. That's not an escrow or liability account. That's actually a budgeted item. And what I've learned, and I know we'll hit on this a little later, but we review the ordinances even more, and I know that that's going to come up a little later. But as far as the dog park, I would just say be sure that in this talk of parks that the council has approved it, because that's how it works. I can give you the numbers. I can tell you what's in the budget, and that's what I did. I sent the email detail those liability accounts, what was in the budget, so that you know what you're working with. But as far as getting that dog park up and running and getting it approved, that has to go to council. So I was simply providing accounting and financial information. I just want to be clear on that.
Right. Yeah. And I appreciate that, because when I started working on the farmer's market this year, the only thing that I'd really been given was historical perspective that the money generated by the farmer's market was to build a dog park. So I guess shame on me. I should have had that information sooner, that that would need to be approved. I guess my assumption walking in was that was already done, because everything that I had been told was that the farmer's market money was going to build a dog park. So if that's something that we need to have approved by council, I mean, I think that, we can make a motion and vote on that as a commission. And then we would just propose to council utilizing those funds to be dedicated toward a dog park.
So I can tell you that in October last year, it was either October or November last year, the former director and Nancy Berube were supposed to meet with, it was planning. I was reading the minutes from October and November. They were supposed to meet with the planning commission or someone in planning, and they were going to discuss maybe zoning for the dog park, but nothing was ever actually approved. Monies were, the intention were to have the dog park in the back of Stephens Park, but as of October last year, there was nothing that had officially been approved and moving forward with the dog park.
Well, and based on some of the other ideas that I think that have recently been brought up at the city council meeting, as well as the Parks and Recreation Commission meetings, I mean, Councilman Winowicki had talked about a disc golf course. Councilwoman Baranski had talked about volleyball courts, and there was one other thing, I can't recall what it was right now off the top of my head, at the last city council meeting. So, I mean, I think that we could also look at other city parcels of land for the dog park. There's actually over by Meyer and Arby's and the senior apartments, there's actually a fairly big lot of land over there that might be ideal also. So if we think about it from, potential risk or liability, if we have it over there also, it would be more segregated from the park, where maybe, if people said, I don't want to bring my kids over there, maybe a dog could get loose, or, I think it potentially would be more secluded to have a dog park over there. So, I mean, that's something that we could talk about as well as different locations. But I know that we wouldn't even know where to start with that unless we know how much money we have and whether or not we're going to have council approval to move forward. So.
Right.
Totally agree that I would caution on, prior to making a motion, I would advise that you perhaps come up with a plan of which area you want to focus on, the estimated cost to do it, and then put that forth through council along with a funding plan. So if you've raised certain funds that have been earmarked appropriately through the budgeting process, I would come up with a plan, come up with the area, come up with the funding proposal, and then present that to council. And just prior to presenting that to council, make sure all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, and you have all that information available so that you have a solid plan for council to really consider the plan. Because council does not and would not have the time or effort to put into something like that without having a comprehensive plan to move forward.
Well, and I think the timing of it also, to just kind of piggyback off what you're saying, is perfect, because I mean, I've been looking over the 5-year plan and some of the things that have recently been proposed. I think it's important that maybe that there are no pet projects, right? And that something gets prioritized over something else because it's potentially more desired or a flavor of the month. I think that we need to, go to the park, see what's really needed. I mean, we have Rindell, right, Park that, I think needs some work, and there are other things that we've talked about doing. So I think that we need to, and I was going to talk about this when we get to the 5-year plan, so I can put a pin in it for now, but I agree with you that we need to have a plan, and I think that it needs to be rolled into the 5-year plan and prioritized also.
I agree.
If
Go ahead.
I could offer what I call my 1.5 cents. I do, I agree with what you're all discussing, and, really any plan that you have, the more in depth it is, the bigger it is, the more in depth and more detailed it's going to be. I think a good written plan was the plan that Sarah wrote with Chris Cook, and I believe she sent it in an attachment for that food truck rally.
Looks good.
Comparing that to the dog park, a dog park's going to be more detailed than a food truck rally. I'm just making a comparison. So I think that if you're going to establish a dog park, there's a lot that you have to consider. But what I noticed about the food truck rally memo was it kind of had who, what, when, how, why. It had it had those 5 items. And to me, you stick to that basic foundation for every plan you do. Some are going to be more detailed, but just keep in mind, it's got to be, a little more elaborate. You got to elaborate more, or council may kick it back to you. And I'm just, that's just my observation. So you're going to have a dog park, you got to know where you want it, rather than, start it out at Stephen. You think it might be at Stephen, but you think it might be somewhere else. I mean, a plan has to say, here's where we want it. And
Right.
here's what it will do, and here's how much we'll need. And while we're on the subject, I would offer to say that, and Sarah and I were discussing this, that typically in December, January, February, the Recreation Commission is putting forth the budget for the entire year. So for example, you know how I'm saying, well, you've got $12,000 of an expenditure in this general ledger line item. You know, we're kind of working through that backwards when you think about it, because we're going, okay, well, what events can we do? We got this 12,000 to work with. Really, the way it should work is in January, February, or whenever, you know, earlier than when the budget's created, the Recreation Commission's got a plan of everything they want to do for that whole year. And like you said, Dana, it ties into that 5-year plan. It ties into that. And so this is what we're doing this year. That's part of that 5-year plan. And then that's put in the budget. So you know, if it's 12,000 in that budget, what each item is that you wanted to do that year. And then as you go through the year, then you're just laying that plan. You're building the foundation and you're presenting it to council throughout the year. That's my 1.5 cents on how that should work based on what I've read in the ordinance.
Commissioner Cook?
I just have a question on that. Aren't we just an advisory committee? I mean, it seems like everything that we bring up to council, we run it.
Yeah, but we'll get to that when we get to the bylaws and the code of ordinances.
Because I want to say, Echo and I have started a calendar for next year of different events that should happen at certain times.
That's awesome. I actually love that idea. I was gonna say within the next couple of meetings, we kind of bump some ideas around for future of the recreation. Any more discussion on the dog park?
Yeah, just one thing, you know, as part of, you know, obviously we look deeper into it, talking to cities that have, you know, built successful ones. I mean, obviously it's smart to do that. It makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure as, you know, Councilman Winowicki knows too, I'm sure there's some variances or some other, you know, hurdles that we might have to cross depending on where it is. But, you know, I'd look forward to being part of that if we can, you know, get together and get those, like Vince said, the who, what, where, when, why, how, and everything else. But I think it's definitely needed in Frazier. Again, I think it just depends on where. So I'm excited to be part of that.
And I think part of it too, and I'm so excited to hear you say that, Chris, because I am definitely team dog park. But you know, part of it too is I believe Fraser First Booster Club has also talked in the past about building a dog park. So, I mean, this is something that also, I mean, we've seen the type of, you know, beauty and magic that they've built in McKinley.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as they're wrapping up McKinley, you know, this might be something that they might be willing to partner with the city on to build a
That's
dog
great.
park,
That'd be awesome.
which I personally think would be fantastic. Right. The more the merrier when it comes to
yeah.
building something like that with them. So
For sure. Yep. Awesome.
Awesome. All right, item number 8, discussion of new events. 8A, food truck rally.
Okay, I don't know, it's as a new event. I know that it's going to in front of council on Thursday to get approved. So I'm hoping it gets approved because signs are out, flyers. I've been passing out flyers, been posting on every site I can think of, having other people post it on their pages. As of right now, we have 10 food trucks. We have a live band. We have a beer tent. We also have a DJ to play in between those times. We're going to have some cornhole boards out there so that some people can sit out and play cornhole. We also have some children's games out there. I'm looking for maybe somebody who could step up and help maybe set up and tear down. If anybody's interested, like 3 o'clock on Saturday and maybe after 8 o'clock on Saturday, I'd greatly appreciate that.
I can help you tear down, but I've got the Fraser Goodfellow golf outing before that, but I'll be there as soon as I can, and then I can stay till the end. No.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, I work till 4:30, but I can help with the aftermath.
Okay,
I will
perfect.
be
Thank you.
at a wedding. I will be at a wedding. Sorry.
I'd like to address the food truck rally. First and foremost, the beer tent came as a complete surprise to members of your commission as well as council. And I would caution the organizers to make sure that all of your I's are dotted and T's are crossed when it comes to large event regulations that the city or the council would consider to impose upon large events. I heard that the latest estimate is about 350 people, which is shy of what ordinance number 17 calls for large events of 500 plus. However, when you introduce alcohol to a city event, things that you must consider and you have to consider and you have to plan for is the public safety. And you have to look at who's going to provide security, who's going to provide medical assistance if needed. Are the restroom facilities adequate enough? I saw, I think on the latest proposal that there's going to be 2 porta potties. I would make sure that, and this is just as a liaison, this is just my advice, things that you might come across when it comes to the council meeting. You're proposing a beer tent, and that adds a lot of notoriety and a lot of potential participation that could exceed that 350. So the ordinance was affected for events of 500 or more. However, council has the latitude to say it doesn't need to be 500 if we think it's going to be 400 and we think we need to have security or law enforcement or whatever. There has to be a plan for that. There also has to be some type of an agreement between agreement, contract, whatever you want to call it, some type of legal thing that would eliminate or try to eliminate any possibility of liability to the city. We have had so many lawsuits recently, and council is very, very conscious of any liability that could come upon the city. So there has to be a plan in place. The beer tent has to be according to the large, and look at ordinance number 17. The ordinance has to be, or there has to be, the beer tent has to be cordoned off. There can't be general admission to that area. They have to be 18 or older because it's an alcoholic substance that's being served. And there has to be some type of waiver of liability if someone else is going to accept the liability, such as the Lions Club. There's just a lot of things in Ordinance 17 that, even though it says large gatherings of 500 people, there will still be concerns coming from council. And I just want to counsel you people on that right now, because that's a very, very sensitive subject about liability within the city. And I also want to say that I think the food truck rally is an awesome freaking event. I support it 110%. I can't say that I would support the beer tent rally unless all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed to absolve the city of any liability. I support the food truck rally so much that I actually dropped off a check to Hunter to support it. I really appreciate it. And I think all the effort that you guys put into it is awesome. And we're all looking very, very forward to it. But please revisit the whole beer tent thing and all the liability and potential liability that goes with it. You have to get the sign off of public safety to make sure that they have enough staff on hand, and who's going to cover that. So when you look at, in contrast, look at the Lions Carnival. Okay, the Lions Carnival has a beer tent. They covered all the extra expenses of public safety, having medics on hand, having public safety on hand, having all the supervision and so on. Are you going to be able to do this between today, which is the 9th, and the 18th? Those are the questions that you're faced with, and you're coming to council to present this proposal. And I just want to caution you before you come to council, make sure you consider all those things before you come to council, because I don't want to see anyone buried on this.
I did speak with Dave Bisbee about it, and he did give me information about having public safety there and how much it would be hourly, estimate of what it would be, because he doesn't know who will be working it. So if it's a sergeant, it will be more. If it's not a sergeant and just a public safety officer, then the prices will differ a little bit, but he did give me information about it, and it should have been put in that memo that was given to Sarah Kelly. So yeah, just wanted to add that.
Does Bisbee, does he do the, who does the signing off of the like liquor license or whatever?
Bisbee.
Bisbee, okay.
Derek from the Lions Club has already brought it over to him, and he did sign it.
So I would circle back on that, because there are certain liquor license laws within the state of Michigan that would cover the Lions Club liquor license. And sometimes, and I'm no expert on this by any means, but sometimes the state of Michigan regulations would supersede whatever a local municipality might approve. And again, I'm just saying, make sure all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, because a lot of the liquor license laws have changed over the years. And we just have to make sure that everyone is up to date and make sure all the liability possibilities are covered. It's my understanding that our city attorney was not even aware of the possibility of having this beer tent. And it's something we might want to cover through our city attorney prior to going through Bisbee or anyone else, because he would be more up to date on the liquor license laws. And again, I 100%, 150% support this food truck rally. I think it's one of the most awesome things to come to the city in a long time. But the addition of the beer tent without having so many other considerations covered, we just have to make sure that we're not putting the city in a position of liability.
Commissioner Hunt?
Okay, so I have a quick question. So when this goes to before council on Thursday, if they look at it and they say, if they say, that beer tent, that's a done deal, can they just cancel the whole event, or can they only cancel that portion of the event? Is it like an all or nothing?
That's a good question.
I can speak for myself. I cannot speak for the rest of council. So I'm taking off the liaison hat.
Okay.
I'm putting on my council hat. And I would say that in my council hat, I would be wholeheartedly, totally behind continuing with the event. However, if we don't have all the I's dotted and all the T's crossed on the beer tent with all of the state regulations and everything else, I would support continuing the event, but without the beer tent. If we can get all of the I's dotted, all the T's crossed on the beer tent, and we're compliant with every state regulation, with every local regulation with regard to public safety, and we have all the expenses covered and all that stuff, then I can, again, as council hat, I can say that I would continue to support that. But if we don't have that, I cannot speak for the rest of council. I cannot tell you what they're going to vote on. I have no idea.
Right.
But I would not be in favor of canceling the entire event in that respect.
Okay, that's all. I just want to know if it was like an all or nothing. So thank you.
Good question. Commissioner Cook.
I have a question. Since the Lions Club just did a beer tent for the carnival, wouldn't they know all the ins and outs of what we need?
That's a very good question.
That's a good question.
They should know that, yes. And being that the Lions Carnival is totally separated by contract from a city-sponsored event, it's actually two different things now. So when you look at the Lions Carnival, we worked very diligently to separate all the liability and get reimbursement for every expense that we incurred through public safety, through DPW, through traffic, through the county, through everything else. The contract that's in place for the city carnival is totally different than what you're planning as far as a city-sponsored event with the food truck rally. Okay, we're now promoting the food truck rally as a city-sponsored event. And as of right now, we're not aware of, putting back the council hat, we're not aware of any separate agreement that would allow them to come in and sell alcohol in a park at a city-sponsored event. The carnival is not a city-sponsored event. They actually have a full contract in place to hold the carnival. Two different things.
Even if they said like, this is city sponsored, but the beer tent brought to you by the Lions Club.
Exactly. I'm sorry, I'm going to be kind of crude here, but becomes a BS converter. So everything that was said before that, after that, it becomes a different. There's a set that the but draws a line in that, and that it becomes two different things. And I'm very confident that our city attorney would give you the same advice.
Well, I guess we'll just have to wait till Thursday.
David?
I'm just trying to give you all the ammunition and information and the armament that you need to go into a council meeting. There are 7 members up there, and all 7 members have a different perspective on it.
Mm-hmm.
We may not always agree on everything, but each member, there are 7 votes that are going to happen. And you need to get the majority of the 7 votes to make this thing move forward. And I think the only way that you're going to get the 7 votes is to make sure that all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed.
Commissioner Hunt.
So that leads me to, for the Thursday meeting, who, other than Chris, because she's, the main focus of the event, or, it's coming from, her perspective. Other than her, should we get somebody from the Lions Club there to also speak and answer questions? Who else would be, after the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, and they get their paperwork to go through, who would be there? Who would be the most logical or, necessary to be there to answer questions from the council?
My recommendation, again, putting the liaison hat back on, not council hat, I would try to bring as many people as you possibly could to answer all of those concerns and questions that I've just brought up. So if the Lions Club says, yes, we're willing to cover the security expenses. Yes, we're willing to cover any extensive or not extensive, but any medical coverage that's needed. If you have them saying that they're willing to do that, and they're willing to put forth to our city attorney some type of an agreement that can be quickly reviewed and approved, that they're willing to absorb those expenses on that behalf. So as a food truck rally, you don't really have to cover a lot of those security things and the medical things. You already have I call it facilities, and I shouldn't call it facilities, but restroom accommodations covered and potable water. There's so many things like that you already have covered in the food truck rally. But when it comes to serving alcohol and the potential liability, if someone from the Lions Club is adept at answering all of those questions and willing to assume all of that liability, then I would say, yes, bring someone from the Lions Club. If you've got someone else on council or on commission that can answer a lot of those questions, yes, the permits were applied for, and yes, the city agrees, and yes, the state agrees, and yes, Bisbee agrees, and all that stuff. I would bring that person who's had all those communications. I just want to see you. I want to see you come with, again, such a great event. I want to see you come with a whole battalion behind you to pass this thing through. I wouldn't have supported it if I didn't believe you guys could do it. And that's why I was excited to here's some money. I can't even afford to donate right now. I'm unemployed, but I donated anyway. So that's how much I want to see this thing move forward. It's we talk about this thing, and it's like my wife tells me every day, she goes, I can't wait to go to this thing. I've seen the menus. I want to go to this thing. I'm like, okay, let's go,
All right. I'll try to make it there on Thursday too for support.
Sorry to be the Debbie Downer in all this, but
No, but I appreciate all your insight. So I appreciate all that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
By the way, the weather has started.
I know, I just looked out the window and saw it.
Yeah, I'm hearing the thunder, I'm hearing all this stuff, and the intensity is supposed to be picking up within the next 30 minutes, so.
All right, less than 30 minutes. Let's get this going. All right, item number 9, overview report of Parks and Recreation. That's all you, Vince.
No real new updates. I think a lot of the discussion, what administration was working, behind the scenes, Hunter, had to do with a lot of, with the food truck rally. So I really don't have, a whole lot to update. I think you all know what's going on with the parks, playground equipment and the installation and that sort of thing. We've over-reported in that area. So I really didn't have anything else.
Okay.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I promise to make it quick because I know storms are coming.
29 minutes.
In our last meeting, you had mentioned that you were working on a recreation plan and had asked the commission to send suggestions and recommendations to you for different recreational activities. I know that I had sent some activities. I believe it was Commissioner Cook. You also had sent some suggestions for activities. So I just wanted to know if there had been any progress on the plan that you were creating for recreation.
Actually, no, and that's probably something that would come out in a little later in the discussion on the in the ordinances and whatnot. Section 18, the Recreation Commission is actually responsible for writing the 5-year plan. as per the ordinance, if you review.
Right.
18. So I had not worked on any of that plan. I'm happy to collaborate with you while I'm here, but it's not something that I'm writing.
Got it. Okay.
Item number 10, other business. 10A, discussion of the 5-year plan. So, sorry, I didn't print it out for some reason.
It's 103
Maybe 'cause it's- yeah, I was
pages.
saying maybe because it's 103 pages. But I was looking at it. I know that I didn't go into great detail with it. My intentions were to go into great detail with it this week, but other things happened and I could not get into it this week. So I promise that I will help you, Dana, with this if you want to.
Right. So I've been, poking through it and looking at some things that that have been completed, right, since the last time that it was updated. I think there are a couple of things that would help us as a commission to update it. One would be if we had a version that's not PDF that we could use as a draft document, because obviously rewriting 103 pages when some of the legalese is going to remain the same. That would be amazing if we could get some sort of version that we could edit.
I'm pretty sure that there is a hard copy version, but where, I do not know.
Well, but even a hard copy version, I mean, that's not something that's like in Word, right? I mean,
Or
we need
Google or something. Yeah.
We need something that we can edit, because it's just going to make the process a whole lot easier, because then that way we can, add years, we can add numbers, we can remove things that have already been completed. But as far as adding things, we had talked last time in the meeting about, as a commission, giving our suggestions and ideas for things that we thought could be added to the new 5-year plan. And then at the last council meeting, like I said, council member Bransky had brought up a couple of ideas that were brought to her by residents, which I think that those things would also need to be prioritized and added into the 5-year plan. But one thing and how we tackle this, I definitely would like to get everybody's feedback. I think we need to ask the residents, right, what they would like in the 5-year plan. It's one thing for all of us to kind of get into a room or, make a subcommittee to work on amending this 5-year plan. But I mean, we are a very small subsection of the residents of Fraser. What do they want? Do they want a splash pad? Do they want an ice skating rink? Do they just want one giant great park? Do they want a dog park? We need to know this before we move on. I think it's extremely important that we put out a survey. I think Christina used to do that in the past, right? Put out surveys on different events and things like that. So I don't know if that's something, Vince, that Hunter could work on, or how we would tackle that. But I think that we need to get feedback from the residents before we just start trucking along on this 5-year plan.
So in the past, Christina used, I think,
Survey Monkey.
I think so.
Yeah. And that's a relatively pretty easy thing to work with, that pretty much anyone could administer and put that out to the city. And that's where a lot of the previous, because I was part of that previous 5-year plan. And that's where a lot of those suggestions and recommendations came from. And if I may, before I lose this thought, going back to the food truck rally, just for a brief moment, thinking about the band, the live band, and the DJ, I would also come to council with the understanding and with knowing what type of genre of music and that will be played, because that will be, I'm as sure as I'm sitting here right now looking at all of you on this screen, I'm sure that's going to be a question.
They're going to play Mbop by Hanson.
Over and over and over again.
I'm just saying, make sure we don't have some offensive lyrics and all that other good stuff happening.
See, Mbop.
Yeah.
That's offensive.
Again, if we compare that to the Lions Club, we didn't have any concern or control, not concern, we didn't have any control over what bands they booked because that's a separate contract and it's a separate event. But coming as a city sponsored event, make sure that it's family friendly and so on and so forth. So enough on the whole food truck thing. Back to the 5-year plan. Survey Monkey absolutely is your probably your best. My only concern with that is my understanding was that the participation level on Survey Monkey was quite low on that last 5-year plan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
So when we were dealing with statistics and we were coming up with that 5-year plan, we did not have, I wouldn't even say a simple majority
No.
of the residents of Fraser. And then it was expanded to go into participants of programming. And even then, we still had nowhere near a simple
Right.
majority
Right.
of participants in that. So I think it might take a lot of networking. It might take a lot more. It might take a lot more effort to get really what do the residents want.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at voter participation, it's extremely low within
Mhm.
15,000.
Yeah.
You know, under 15,000 residents, voter participation is low. So how do you really reach out to them to get their opinion?
Right.
So
Right.
I just had a thought then. November 2nd is election day.
Yep.
Can't we put out a little survey in hard copy? Because a lot of people don't do the computer. I mean, you just said voters are low, but at least there's something. Couldn't we put out like hard copy flyers that when they go to their voting poll booth, they can pick that up?
I'm again, not an expert in any means possible about voting, but there are certain, I know that there's regulations on what you can do at a
Yeah.
voting booth.
Hmm.
I would check with, we have an acting city clerk right now to handle this election. And we're in the process of bringing on a new city clerk that we've approved. That person would be able to answer that better than I could.
Yeah.
Commissioner Cook.
I was thinking maybe if we could get something together by the farmer's market and have a table with that on there, or the food truck rally and have a table with that on there. Maybe have a little sign saying, survey, city survey, fill it out, maybe jot your concerns or something on that. I mean, then you're hitting some more people. I know
Right.
to get things out there is not very good because you
Yeah.
have social media, which is only a third of probably the people in the city. You
Mhm.
have flyers that we're passing out, which is only a few people that sees. We need to do a better job of figuring out how to do that.
Right.
Within the city, there's probably 5, maybe 6 different social media sites. There's like Fraser Strong, there's Enough, there's Fair, there's Venetian Village, there's there's like 4 or 5 different sites. If you could hit those as well as your food truck rally, as well as the other events, the farmers market, and then have someone actually vet those as you get them, so you don't have duplicities throughout the whole
Mhm.
thing. That might be a better earmark.
Yeah.
I was talking about for the survey for the city of
Yes.
what they want, because I know
Yes.
like my neighbors are not on Facebook. So I mean, unless I tell them, they don't know what's going on in the city.
Right, but so you reach those people through your farmers market and through your
Mhm.
food truck rally, and then those that may not attend those other events and may be on Facebook, is you might get a much better count or a
Yeah.
much better tally moving forward, that you can vet those and get rid of the duplicity and
Yeah.
and then
Well-
come through and say, look, instead of 200 people on Survey Monkey, look at this, we've got 500 people.
Hmm. Yeah.
Well, and I think that there are certain hotspots in the city too that we can hit, right? So we can go to the senior apartments with flyers, we can go to the library, we can go to Shots. We
Mhm.
can, I mean, there is a way that we could try to reach a broader base in the city, rather than just social media.
Senior apartments are kind of restricted to surveys and outside influence, so you really kind of have to.
Well, if we work with those organizations, right? I mean, we could at least call, right? We
Mhm.
can put message board up at Meyer, I mean, they have a message board. There's different things that we can do to try to get the word out.
That would have I think that would have a higher impact on reaching more people that really live within the city and would vote upon that. And
Well, I think
again, the vetting it is going to be the most important part, because you don't want somebody from Sterling Heights going, hey, we have Dodge Park and we have splash pads and we have hockey rinks and we have this and we have that.
Right.
And then we think Fraser should do the same thing.
Mhm.
If they're not a city resident, you really can't take into consideration what they would like to see within Fraser.
So I mean, one of the beautiful things too is that if it's Survey Monkey, we build it. That could be the
Right.
first question. Are you a resident of the city
Sure.
of Fraser?
Yep.
Because the other way that we can get that out is by reaching out to the different PTO organizations
Mhm.
in the
Mhm.
schools,
Yep.
right? Because obviously parents of children might want to have a say in what's going on in the park and what's going to be
Yep.
in the 5-year plan.
Mhm.
With that in mind, I would also keep in mind that Fraser is school of choice.
Right, that's why I'm saying the
Yep.
question number one would be, are you a
Question number
resident?
one. Very good.
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yep.
All right.
So who would put this together then? I mean, I guess that question goes to Vince and or Hunter, right? Because Hunter, I don't want to sit here and just create work for you.
That
So if
would-
we were to make a motion to put a survey together, something pretty basic, right? That would be 1, are you a resident of the city of Fraser? And then, we can come up with what all the criteria would be, right? 2, what park are you most closely located to? What types of activities or amenities would you like to see in the city? And then a comments section, because that's where you're going to get most of your gold and your feedback is going to be in the comments section. So Vince, is that something?
I
that-
don't think that falls on Vince or Hunter. I think that falls
Okay.
on the Recreation Commission.
Okay,
Yeah, I was ready to say that,
okay,
I would say that, we could help distribute the information, the ideas and the questions would come from you, and
Mhm.
we could help disseminate it, if, for example, if you sent out hard mail and they responded and we could have it come back, we could collect the data and turn it over to you, that sort of thing. We administrate it, but the ideas would come from you. I agree with Mr. Winowicki.
okay. So then before I take this ball and run with it, is there anybody else? And so that I don't just be an activity grubber that would like to to create this survey?
I don't know how to create these surveys. I'm sure it's
Well,
easy.
when I say create the survey, I mean, like, first we need to draft, right? And then circulate what questions should be on it. And I'm not even saying that it would need to go out prior to our next meeting, right? Because we're still working on the 5-year plan. And obviously we want to hear from the residents before we move forward. So what I'm saying is draft the survey and then circulate it to the rest of the commission prior to our next meeting so that we can review it, amend it, allow for citizens to potentially give feedback on even the survey prior to circulating it, make a motion at that time in our October meeting, then circulate, work with Hunter to get it on the recreation page, on the City Hall Facebook page, City Hall Facebook page and that type of thing.
Dana, I'm starting a GoFundMe page for you to get a larger wheelbarrow.
I appreciate it. I really need it.
I'll totally meet up at Love Sushi with you and plan this survey together.
Oh, all right.
Listen, I'll bump ideas around too. I mean, I'll come up with some questions.
I mean, the shorter the survey, right? I think we really want to pinpoint it, right?
Yeah,
We don't want
yeah.
this to be some long 5-page survey, people
No,
are going to lose interest. It's going to be, are you a resident? Maybe what park do you live closest by? What would you like to see in this? I'm thinking like 5 questions.
mhm,
I was gonna say less than
Yeah.
10, so.
Top, right?
Yeah.
And then like comments.
You're absolutely right. Having administered surveys for employee engagement for all the companies that I've worked for before, the shorter the survey, the simpler the questions, the
Yep.
better results you get.
Exactly. When you say, please take time to answer this 5-question survey, you're going to get more participation than please take time to answer this 10-page survey.
yes. Yep,
Don't
for
ever
sure.
mention it's going to be 20 minutes.
No, no.
I know, it makes me not want to do it.
Right.
We
Go
could
ahead,
probably
Hunter.
put it on our website, because I know we have links. Christina used to put links on there for like donations, like people who wanted to donate or to sign up and register for programs. So we could probably put it on like the front page of the website.
Okay.
Or
Good.
the
So
website.
I will circulate some questions then, and then you guys, definitely give me your feedback. No one's going to break my heart if you think my questions are awful, or if you want to add or subtract. So just, we'll come
Okay.
up with something and then we can review it, make a motion at the next meeting as to whether or not we want to approve it, and then move forward with getting it distributed to the residents. And then we'll just
Sounds
keep
good.
going from there. And then hopefully that will allow some time for us to find out if we can get a copy of the 5-year plan that can be edited, so
Yeah.
that we don't have to retype 103 pages.
Right.
So I will also make a suggestion. Councilman Lesich did actually work on one of the 5-year plans. So he would be a nice person to kind of get some ideas from.
Right. Laura's still on here?
Where's Mike?
Laura,
She's
Mike
still
is
here.
there. Like, ask Mike real quick if he still has that.
I have.
That was many years ago, but I'm sure.
Hey,
in,
we could still bump ideas around in his head.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I'm going to dig through my notes from being on Parks and Rec. I might have a copy of a survey that we've done in the past.
I was thinking the same thing.
But I kind of like the idea of having something hands down at your farmer's market this week. So that,
I don't know if we'll be able to get it by this market.
I know, that's just it. You're losing time
Yeah.
and all that.
We are.
So
Yeah, definitely. But we have one more market.
I was going to say, we could also take a unofficial survey.
Hey,
yeah, you could.
You want a
could.
splash pad?
Right. But
All right.
we can also look for that hard copy too, or the online Word. I'm sure it's in Word.
His ears are probably burning right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well, thank you very much.
Cool.
you're welcome.
I have 2 copies. I have this current one, and then I have the one before that. I just found it today.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I saw
have
this.
that one. I have that one too. I've
Yeah.
got that old one too.
Okay, any more discussion on 5-year plan right now? Oh, no, doesn't look good. Okay. 10B, discussion of the bylaws and the code of ordinances. I did send both, I think, and
Yeah.
the commission handbook.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't know. I'm
You
all
did.
lost.
You did.
Oh, thank you.
So I met with Vince and Elaine last week. I don't know. My days are all mixed up. And we went over the Recreation Commission, the ordinances. And one of the biggest things that we came to the conclusion of is that they need to be updated. Even
Was it
something
like
so
2007 or something like that? Was the
Oh, I
last
don't
time that
even
it was
remember.
updated? I think that's what I saw when I was reading through it today.
I mean,
Yeah,
even
14
something so
years.
simple as like, the $10,
Mm-hmm.
because we
Yeah.
actually get $15. So woohoo, hold me back.
I'm putting
I
it toward my wheelbarrow fund.
I totally agree with you as far as a lot of the ordinances are needing to be updated. I can give you some insight that right now, Don, our city attorney, is working on
I did see
updating
that.
our public safety
Mhm.
ordinances, specifically with regard to fire safety, that particular ordinance alone is in excess of 500 pages. So we are, as a council, we are considering that, and we are proposing that a lot of the ordinances be updated, and we are prioritizing them. However, with regard to public safety, with regard to the residents and so on. So eventually our goal as council is to have all of the ordinances updated. But please understand that even if you make a recommendation tonight, please don't be offended. It will not be given a top priority when it comes down to public safety first.
So of course.
Oh, I agree. Yep.
So then, does that responsibility have to fall solely on Don's shoulders? Meaning,
That was the next question I was gonna ask.
no, great minds, girl. Meaning, I mean, I don't see any reason why we couldn't at least take a stab at it. So at least at rewriting or revising some of these ordinances, and then he would review. Then the worst thing that would happen is he would say, no, these are awful. But it might be a bit of a time saver as well as a cost savings from having him have to rewrite the whole thing or update everything and have that responsibility lie solely on his shoulders.
As an advisory board, you can always make recommendations. But I would also, again, caution you to understand, you may not get a response. You may not get an immediate response. You may get a response of, thank you for your suggestions. However, we are prioritizing and updating ordinances that are that are given a higher priority, again, with regard to public safety of our residents. So you can always make a recommendation. You're an advisory board, and we appreciate any and all information or advice that you may want to offer. We appreciate that. But it seems that some members in the past have gotten offended because they didn't get an immediate gratification with a response, and we don't want that to happen. So just the liaison hat is telling me, yes, you can do that. The council hat is, please understand, there are much higher priorities that are being worked on. And it's something that we as a council have voted on and have talked about and have prioritized, that yes, there are many other things with regard to specific laws within the state of Michigan, federal government, and so on, public safety and so on. All those things are taking high priority over any other like nuisance ordinances. There are people that would want us to write a ticket because someone's weeds got 6 inches high, and we can't really address that right now. That's not one of the higher priorities. When we may have a business out there that's not following, public safety protocol when it comes to fire regulations and things like that. We want our public protected first.
Right.
And
As
so,
it should be. It should get precedence.
It should.
Yeah.
So ultimately, does it come down to, does the city attorney have to do that? I mean,
yes.
okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So we can theoretically could, like, a couple members of council and a couple members of recreation throw ideas around together on how to change these ordinances.
Yes.
Or, I mean, ideas on what to change.
Yeah. Yeah, because changing the city charter would take a majority vote of the city voters. But in adopting, in enacting, or changing an ordinance, it's something that city council would eventually do based on the advice of the city attorney.
Okay. So one of the things that I talked about with Elaine was, and Vince was I don't know where it's at right now because I printed it really small for some reason, unbeknownst to me. Just trying to save paper. I only had orange paper, so. I believe it was the the whole budget area and the creating a plan, and we went over that. And we're gonna, in the past, we never had, I don't know, had is not the right word, but we didn't have to do that because the director that we had was solely the director for recreation. And this director also had a full-time and a part-time employee that were solely recreation. So she did most of that legwork for everyone. You know, she did the budget. She, you know, her other employees did, you know, activity planning and all that other fun stuff that has to present to council. So I gathered when I was reading it that like the budget that we have to put together according to the ordinances would be more of like a, for the first quarter, we want to spend this much money. And then not have every single detail of every single program we want to do, like 1 or 2 big events, you know, in the first quarter, and then this many in the second quarter, you know, back and forth, you know, like the end of the last quarter, we want to do like, wait, the end of the quarter of summer, right? I got confused for a second.
No, I got you. So my advice would be that, so as you plan moving forward, as you plan all of the events that you would like to do, okay, the garden stroll, the Halloween thing, the Christmas things, whatever you want to plan. I wouldn't say that you would have to be extremely detailed in your budget numbers, but I would have, again, a plan in place of what you think you might want to do, approximate costs, and then put all of those things together and say, okay, so for the forthcoming year, here's what we want to do is we want to have an event in January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, and so on. And we think that on average, we would need about X number of dollars per month. And then as you plan each event, because you're planning for the whole budget year, and as Vince, I think, would confirm this, is that you're planning for the fiscal year of 2022, you're going to have, let's just throw a round number out there, $20,000. So your January event or your February event doesn't generate the expenses that you thought it was going to. So now you can carry those funds over into March, April, May.
Right.
And you can start to balance those things out. But I would say that as you're planning those types of events, have some type of a general number. And try to, again, cross all the T's, dot all the I's. Try to make sure that you cover all the potential expenses. Now, as I think, again, Vince, and you can jump in any time, at the end of that fiscal year, though, whatever you've budgeted for that, it will go away. It's like most corporations today is you get 4 weeks of vacation. If you don't use it at the end of the year,
right, you lose it.
Sayonara, Sammy, it goes on to next year. So, Vince, how accurate was that?
I would say relatively accurate. It's what I was saying a little earlier. You know, the Recreation Commission creates a budget early on. Typically, we know that the fiscal year ends June 30th. And so the Recreation Commission is working on that budget, you know, anytime December, January, February, early on in that process, because council has to approve the budget around May or so. And so you're working on it early enough, and it's a broad projection, and there's lightning and thunder out here. I don't know if you heard, but I'm on the iPad, so you shouldn't have to worry about me. I'd work in the dark. But it's a broad outline in January, February, where you have an idea, as Mr. Winowicki said, you know, farmer's market. Yep, we're bringing that back. You know, garden walk, Halloween stroll, food truck rally in July, Halloween stroll October. You can do all that in January, February, because you know what's coming for that year. And when you're budgeting that, it's July 1 through June 30th of the following year. And so it's really broad, it's real general. So for example, in January, February, you're saying, we're going to bring that farmer's market back. And based on cost, we're going to charge the merchants this year, and it's not going to be free. And we think that it'll generate, you know, cost of $3,000 this year. And it'll have revenue of this, you know, because we're gonna charge them this year.
Right.
So that's kind of the farmer's market. And then you say, we're going to bring a food truck rally in July. And we think based on what we have or what we're going to bring. So in your mind, you know how many trucks you're going to have, you know, rough estimates, and then what that'll cost. And then a Halloween stroll, you're going to do that in October. Here's what we think. So it's a rough projection. You don't know for sure. But as Mr. Winowicki say, you're getting numbers together, you know, just so council knows, yep, they got a plan here. And so, like I said earlier, 12,000's in there. I think the prior budgeter looked at last year and say, oh, you had 12,000 in here. We're just going to bring it over this year. And as I said earlier, that's kind of doing a little backward, because you should have a plan that says, here's the money, as opposed to you got 12,000 here and you're looking at it going, okay, how are we going to spend this? You see what I mean? You got to plan it first. And then as you go through the year, see how close your projections were when you get to the actual planning. So let's say when July comes and that food truck rally's, you know, coming up, probably in April and May, you're really detailing that food truck rally. And that's when you're getting the how, the why, the what, the when, the where, the who. Now it's becoming much, much more detailed and granular. And then that cost might vary a little bit from that rough projection, but it should be relatively close. And that's what we discussed, Sarah and the city manager and I, you know, kind of just understanding how that process will work.
There's a big difference between budgeting for events and allocating funds for a specific project.
Right.
Commissioner Cook, go ahead.
So my question is, we propose different things to do. Are we supposed to run these events ourselves? Like Echo and I, you know, we did the walking thing. We did, you know, the photo rally. We're doing the food truck rally. You know, are we supposed to like actually run everything ourselves that we propose?
Well, that's a good question. And that's what also we discussed in reviewing the ordinances. The commission, based on my understanding, formulates the ideas, the budget, the plan, and then they go to council for approval. You know, the administrator does not approve anything. It's run through council to approve your programs and activities. And then, you know, the budget's approved by council. And so once it's approved, we administrate it. The recreation department then carries it out. So this year, as you know, you take Dana as an example, has been instrumental in the farmers market, starting it, you know, getting it back going and everything. You have to look at our numbers. You know, we didn't have anybody. You know, I'm coming in, you know, without even Hunter. I mean, you're working with a one-person department and now Hunter too. We're still not a full staff with leg work to carry out things. But technically, the Recreation Commission gets their idea, their plan approved through council. Council says to administration, the Recreation Department, we approve this, and then our job is to go about executing it.
Okay,
That's
so then I would like to set up, I mean, can we set up a meeting or can we get a group together? Because like I said, Echo and I have already started working on a calendar for the following year. Can we get like a group together to meet face to face to kind of figure out what we want to do each month and propose that? Is that what we would do?
You could
I don't
make,
think-
you could make a motion for a subcommittee.
Yeah, so again, to tailgate on to what Vince is saying is that, yes, council would approve of the activity, council would approve of the budget expense. But in order for us to approve anything on council, we would need to have as part of the plan, what is the plan? So you come up with the ideas and you come up with the expense and everything else. I would also make part of that plan as, okay, how would you propose to staff it? How would you propose to run it? You have to understand that we're
Right, we
limited.
have no one to staff anything or run anything unless we do it ourselves.
Exactly. And that's where we're currently at within the city, is that Hunter holds 2 titles. Vince is holding 4 or 5 titles. And so when you look at, saying, okay, we've got this great idea that we want to come up with, but we don't have anybody to run it, I would have some type of a backup plan to say, okay, so I've got 4 volunteers or I've got 3 volunteers who could do this. Because
So why are we racking our brains to come up with ideas if we have to run everything? I mean, because it's getting very, I don't know, taxing to run everything ourselves. Do you get what I'm saying? You know what I mean?
I totally understand that. And with any other volunteer organization, it's pretty much the same thing. You're not a volunteer organization, you're actually appointed as advisors and you're coming up with ideas, but we ask you to come up with ideas. Okay, so you've got the idea. What's the rest of the plan? How is the funding going to come into place? How is everything else going to come into place? There are only so many employees within the city that we can say, okay, we'll do this. There are some things that you come up with that we might say, okay, that's a great idea. Thank you very much. You don't need to do anything else. Here's who we're going to delegate this responsibility to, and so on and so forth. There's going to be other ideas that you may come up with that will say, okay, so we don't have someone to delegate this to, or a way to incorporate this into another event. How is that going to work?
So with that being
how long down the line will it be before we get someone who's going to actually run Parks and Recs?
We will have, we've actually approved the position of a part-time recreation coordinator. And we're currently advertising and interviewing for that position, but that's not going to be someone who's going to be able to handle every single function. We rely on the Recreation Commission and the Advisory Committee to be able to come up with volunteers, to come up with the staffing, needed to do a lot of these individual ideas. We're not going to be, and we probably never will be, a city like Sterling Heights or a larger community that can employ, 10-fold people to handle and run all these types of things. We're just not that large of a community. We don't have that type of budget capacity, and we're not going to be able to do it. So we have historically relied on a lot of volunteers to be able to run things.
Yeah, and I want to say something real quick. You make a good point. We need to tap into our community. We need to tap into the parents of the children, in the community. And I think, seeing what they would be, available to participate in. I mean, I work at OCC and we have a lot of faculty that, will, go to events with us. So I think it's the same mindset. And I also think in that survey, we need to have a question in there. Are you willing to volunteer, we need to find that base list of people. And I think that's a challenge. But I think, David's right. Just finding those volunteers, because you guys, especially Echo and Chris and Dana and all you guys, it can't be run by us and especially you guys right now all the time.
Right.
So I think we really need to get into that, into our,
The only problem with volunteers is if they don't show up, then what?
yeah, I mean, I deal with it
I mean,
every day. I deal with it every day.
Believe me, I work in elementary school. I get it.
Yeah,
it. But
right.
I mean,
So, but all we can do is put it out there and find those, and I'm sure they're out there. We've been here, living here long enough, and people say that they want to be involved, and I think it's just really, if they want Parks and Rec to succeed, and they have to realize we're not Sterling Heights, we're not Warren, we're Fraser, we're 14,000 and change of a community, and it's going to take more, instead of just someone saying, well, how come you're not doing this? How come you're not doing that? Well, how about helping us? I mean,
Right.
I don't know. It's a
I completely
challenge.
agree with what you're saying. And I think that
Yeah.
there does have to be a certain level of volunteerism. But I
Yeah.
mean, even if we aren't the same size as the Sterling Heights, right, where it might not take a staff of 10, I mean,
Right.
it doesn't mean that our residents don't deserve a staff of maybe 1 or 2, and that we can't sit here and say, well, we can never do this or we can never do that.
Right.
It's all about prioritizing and allocating.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So, I mean,
And
it can't be solely run by volunteers. And some of
No.
these things, it's the way that it can be run
I
and
agree.
what we charge. And so just for us to say always or never, or we
Mhm.
need volunteers or this and that, it's got to be a collaborative approach of doing all of these things, because right now there's nothing, and it's a
Right.
shame.
Right. It is.
I've been the past president of the Fraser Athletic Boosters, and I got to tell you, running events for different sports events and running the concessions and so on, considerably relied on all volunteers.
I believe it.
I'm one of the founding members of Families Against Narcotics,
Mhm.
and I got to tell you that all of the events are run on all volunteerism. There are no staff members that take on 100% of the load and responsibility. I'm on the foundation board for Rising Stars Academy, and there are only maybe 1 or 2 people that take on certain responsibilities for fundraising events. Almost all of it is done with volunteerism.
Right. But those are charities.
So-
Those are boosters. Those are
Right.
Those are-
501c3s.
those
We're
are-
a city.
They are.
We're a
We are.
municipality.
I
and
agree.
We are, and you're coming up with ideas to run events throughout the city, and we do not have the capacity to hire hundreds of people or even tens people.
I don't
to
think we
handle
need either of
events.
those.
We don't have the capacity to do that.
I don't think
Look
we
at-
need the
look at the-
capacity to do
look at
that.
the
I agree with
financial-
you.
Look
But
at the financial
0 is
position.
also not okay.
Look at the financial position that we are in. Look at the size of the city. Look at the financial budget that we have. And if you want to compare us to cities like Sterling Heights, Centerline, or anyone else around us, you're not going to be able to do it.
I don't think
And
anybody's
so-
trying to do that.
I'm just saying that
I'm just
we are-
hoping
we are-
that we
we are
get some
not-
things happening.
we have some things happening, but we also have had, in the past, we've had a lot of things that weren't successful. And if you're coming up with ideas that are going to be along the same lines of what we've been doing, and it's not going to be successful, council will not approve the budget to hire people to run things that are not going to be successful. So we have to think outside the box.
How would you know if we're
We
not
have
doing
to-
it based on historical context, whether or not it's going to be successful unless you try it?
Again, if you're coming up with a lot of the same ideas that weren't successful, council is not going to approve staffing to run things the way it always has been done. And going along with what Chris Meller said is that, look, we need to get volunteerism at a higher level to get things moving along. So you want to come up with good ideas, that's great. Come up with good ideas.
And then we have to come up with the volunteers for that,
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
At this
It-
point,
it's-
yes. At this point
Yes.
in our city, we have to come up with volunteers until
do.
we have at least someone at a higher capacity to take on some of the stuff that we want.
I'm just saying as a percentage of the population of the city of Fraser. And if we talk about the staff that would be needed to create and staff certain events, it's not going to be at the level that it's going to be in Sterling Heights. But to tell the residents of the city of Fraser that you need to pay taxes and then volunteer so that you can have recreation activities is unreasonable.
And,
By the
you know,
same-
I get that
by-
too, but, you know, think about, I think that the average citizen in our city has no idea what's happening in our city. I mean, honestly, think about all the lawsuits our city has had this year.
Yeah.
That is something like, if you told the average person, they would be like, no, not Fraser. Like, we pay high, we don't have that. And I was like, no, pay attention, you know, like that's a
Well,
lot of money that
it is.
Dana,
But
by the same token, okay, think about all the things that you're talking about. Okay, think about, you're saying that we want to come up with all these activities and we want to do all these things and we need to staff the city to be able to do this. Now we
Nope.
have to sit there and talk to the city
That's not what I'm
residents
saying.
and say, okay, so now we want to do all these things that we've come up with these ideas, and now you need to pay a higher tax because now we need to hire more people.
Nope, that's
How is-
not what I'm
how
saying.
is
No.
that conversation gonna go?
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
What I'm saying is
I think this whole conversation is going south and we're spending a great deal of time on this
Yes.
right now, and we're totally off the subject matter of the agenda. And I think this is something that we could all agree to disagree on, because we've all had an input on this for the most part, and I think we need to move on.
Okay,
Well,
so I say, Dana.
I agree.
Well,
And I think that the residents who are informed will see who's volunteering and who is working hard to make some changes and create some life for the city. So I agree with you. We should move on.
Yes, Dana, I just want to add one thing. I think on your survey, you do need to add something for a volunteer list so we can have something to work from. Because, you know, unless you throw it out on Facebook, how do you get your volunteer list?
All right.
Yeah. Like if you were willing to volunteer for a recreation event, you could dedicate 0 hours per month, 1 to 5 hours per month, 5 to
Mhm.
10.
yes.
Yep. I agree.
I will write that down.
Cool.
I don't know if anyone saw it, but Echo already sent some questions over. So
Thanks, Echo.
all right, well, this discussion, I don't know where it went actually. um, so I guess the gist of it is that we have to kind of look at the code of ordinances, and maybe anyone who wants to make a suggestion, I'm looking through them too and see what kind of needs to be thrown out and adjusted. And at this point, we're gonna just follow the ordinances as close as we can. I mean, even when we come up with plans, I saved that memo to my computer, so I had some kind of outline for when we have to present something to council. So
Good.
All right, 10C, discussion on how to fill the open seat. So I really think the first thing that we need to do is maybe update the website, because it still says April.
Mhm.
I can honestly say I'll probably be done with my term before my name gets up there, so it's okay with me.
I agree too.
Just letting you know.
I know.
No one will know I was even here.
So I know, and then I'm gonna have to do it 1, 2, 3 seats after that. So I don't know. I think that I try to network with people and ask them, but no one just shows up. No one puts it in. I think Amanda was the only one that actually listened to me and put in her application to be a commissioner. So
Your farmer's market and your food truck rally.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I network enough, so I know it doesn't
Yep.
look like it, but I talk a lot, so I talk to lots of people about it. So I think that we should just, keep getting it out there to
Yeah.
have people try to fill the open seat, even if it's someone that has like younger kids or like high school
Sarah,
kids. Yeah, what's up?
if you draft something up, I'll gladly post it everywhere. I just
Okay.
don't know what to put it in. I don't know what to put exactly in it. But if you draft something and send it to me, I'll hit every avenue I can.
Okay. All right, sounds good. All right, I guess we're moving on to 11, citizen participation. Looking at you, Sherry.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yep, sure
Yes.
can.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Sorry
Hello.
I'm running a little late. First thing I want to say is thank you guys, Commission, for working so hard. Chris, working on that food truck. She's been working her little tushy up. Excellent job, you guys. Excellent job on
Mhm.
working on those events. Another thing I'm just going to touch on before I go to the McKinley stuff is I totally agree that we need to have volunteers to do events. But when it comes to recreation programming for children, I don't feel like that could be a volunteer thing. I think that needs to be ran. Like, you guys can come up with ideas. I totally agree with that.
Mhm.
But then that needs to be run with somebody through the city. If we don't have somebody in the city running that, that's never going to go through. So, I mean,
I
I
agree.
understand volunteers, but you guys can't do all that. I mean,
No, I agree.
if this
I
was a
agree.
full-time job for you guys, yeah, then you could. But
Mhm.
coming up with idea for a recreation program, that would be fine. But running a whole recreation program like Little League or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah,
What
that's not possible.
That's not
Usually,
volunteers. Yeah.
usually in the past, like anytime we had something that was supposed to be volunteer based, like basketball,
right.
it had to be like combined because we didn't have any volunteers. So
Yeah, so those two
Right.
subjects are totally separate from
Yes,
what we
I
were
agree.
talking about earlier.
Yeah.
What
Agree.
we were talking about earlier was all the other events. What we're talking about now is recreation programming, which again, I just stated that we approved, and we are interviewing and potentially hiring someone to run recreation programming for those types of events. Totally different subject than the other events that we've talked about in the past.
I'm just putting it out there because 20 hours for somebody to run a whole, even 4 programs for children is not gonna. You're gonna have to have a lot of volunteers still. That's all I'm saying. And I understand what you're saying. You have to show where we can spend the money before we spend it. I totally understand it. You have to show a program that's going to survive and it's going to work before you spend money. And I totally understand it. I just think 20 hours for one part-time, because this can be a part-time, correct? I mean,
Yes.
Councilman Winnicky?
Currently, it's going to be part-time, and we will see where the programming runs. We have been consulting with other communities, and we are reinventing, as they have all reinvented,
Correct.
all of their programming events. And we have found that we may not need a full-time, but at this point, we don't know. We're going to start with a part-time. And so we are starting to build back. There are lots of program restrictions along with this whole new Delta variant and everything else that's going on. So we are starting with a part-time. That's what we've approved thus far. And we are hiring people that are coming in from other communities that have said, we have totally reinvented our entire parks or our entire recreation events. And so that's where we're going. We're going with the majority of advice right now. And we're looking at, okay, we're going to start with a part-time person. And do we need to run a basketball event that may have had 10 participants? No, we don't. We're not going to spend that effort and that time.
And
Right.
no, and
Run-
I totally understand that. And I hope maybe we could show that we need more than a 20-hour person. And that's all I'm saying. I just don't feel like that could be run on all volunteers. And that was the only
Right.
point I'm making at this point.
The volunteers, again, let's keep this separate. Let's really define this. The volunteers are for all the other events that we're talking about.
like
The-
Christmas in Fraser and
The
the
yes.
farmer's market. That
Yes,
kind of
thank
stuff.
you, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah, for defining that. The Halloween stroll and all those things. Those are all separate events from organized events. Let's call it organized events and let's call it other types of events. The other types of events, you need volunteers. The organized events that we've had in the past will probably not be the same. We have found through our research that they are not getting the participant levels. And so we are reinventing those things. And we're calling in right now a part-time person. So let's not debate whether we're going to have volunteers or we're going to have a staff person. The staff person, council will designate and say, for organized events, this is where this will go. For volunteer events, for all those other types of ideas, the garden stroll, the Halloween thing, all the other stuff, that's going to be through volunteerism. And that's how it's going to go.
Councilman Winniwicki, I totally understand where you're going from. It was just my personal opinion. That's all I'm saying. I totally understand where you're going. So going on with that, I will give my update for Mckinley and Fraser first. First thing I want to do is give a huge shout out to Linden Construction and Mini Mix. They're the ones that put in the cement slabs for the raised garden beds. And they did that out of all donation. Mini Mix donated all the cement and Linden Construction donated all their time to put that in for the city and for Fraser First. So I just want to give them a big round of applause. And make sure you use businesses like that because those are the businesses that are giving back to our community.
Yep.
So to me, that's a big, huge thing. So I just want to give them a big round of applause. The next thing I'd like to thank council for having us on the agenda last month and letting us propose our last and final phase of McKinley Park, the Zip Cruise. That has been ordered and we're looking for a little bit more just to make sure we have every penny to make sure there's no unforeseen costs that we will have to come out with. So we are having a community challenge right now. There is information on Facebook, our Fraser First Facebook page. So please go check that out. Even $1 would help us. Every dollar that somebody gives always helps and always goes directly into McKinley Park at this time. So the next thing is our next meeting is the 14th of this month at 6:30. That will be a Zoom meeting still. Information is also on our Fraser First Booster Club Facebook page. You can find out some more things that are coming up. We are getting ready to build the raised garden beds that are going to go on those cement slabs. That will be Thursday of this week, weather permitting, of course, because that seems like it always plays some kind of bad. I hope not bad. It's gonna be a great day. That's all I can say. So once those get in, then we are looking at the landscaping for around that. And, that's probably not going to be this season. Of course, we're running out of time. So we're hopefully on spring, all the nice landscaping to finish it off will be all done. And then the zip line, another thing, we're on the list, but that doesn't mean that it'll be done this season because that list could be all the way to spring already. Other than that, like I said, I just wanted to give a big, huge shout out, and I'll say it again to Linden Construction and Mini Mix to give this back to the city. So if you have any questions.
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry. What time did you say the meeting was on the 14th?
It's 6:30 and it's a Zoom meeting. Yep. And you know what, guys, I apologize to the commission also. I should be sending an email to you about those meetings. I apologize. I will start CCing you guys all on that.
That would be great. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was my mistake. With all this COVID
Sherry,
stuff,
geez.
I got COVID brain. I know, COVID brain. I apologize. So, and then we'll be talking about some more stuff, the community challenge. It's going very well. We already have about 15 to 20% of our goal. So thank you to everybody that's already gave. This will probably go to the end of October, beginning of November.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Sherry.
Thanks.
You're welcome. You guys have a great evening. And again, thank you guys for all your help and volunteer.
Thank you, Sherry.
Any other citizens want to participate? No, no. Oh, there she is. I knew it, Laura.
Okay. In that whole discussion about what the commission's gonna do and the volunteers and all that kind of stuff, I am just blown away that this city administration, including the council, is expecting this voluntary board to come up with a budget, come up with the plans, come up with everything to do with these programs, to only to be having to go to council to get it approved and shot down, or more information needs to be needed, especially now with this food truck thing that you still gotta get more information in the next 2 days to finalize everything you want to do with this food truck rally. I'm thinking, and then you have open seats that you can't fill, because who wants to volunteer for a commission that has to do 40-hour work? I mean, most of you people have full-time jobs. I can't imagine having to dig into all the legalities of something when you're a volunteer person. You're gonna burn out all the volunteers that we have. And that's happened with Fraser First. We barely get enough people to help us nowadays because they're all involved in other things. They have activities, they have schools. You know, Chris, I mean, you have things going on within your own work that you have to volunteer for, and it's probably a requirement. So for this, the commission to turn into a actual working job, I mean, it's ridiculous. I can't believe that this is where it's going. And if you keep going that way, you're like running in circles. Because I think if you plan an event and you say it's going to cost me, $3,000 to do this, and then you have to get it approved before the budget is approved for the year, then all of a sudden you're going to be doing all the sponsorships. I need money. What is the Christmas and Fraser is all about? Money. People are donating to have this event, and then you have somebody to organize what to do with that money. That should be the city's responsibility, not the volunteer group. So I'm sorry, I am totally against what you're trying to do with this recreation department. And it looks to me like you're trying to kill it, and you're killing it really good, because you're losing all your volunteers and losing people being involved in our great city. And I'm going to say this at the council meeting too, the facts about the parks. Hey, it's great. You updated 5 parks. That is awesome. I go to the park closest to my place. My 2-year-old grandson can't go on a slide because it's for the 5 to 12-year-olds, and it can be very dangerous for him. There is no ladder for him to go on a slide. Oh, yeah, we got this little part over here so they can bounce on the horsey or whatever it was, but that's not for the 5 and unders. So I love that you guys did the parks, but I don't think you talked to the right people in the neighborhood to know exactly what you want in those parks. And for you to put out a survey and say, okay, what else do you want? I think it's important you go to the people in the neighborhood to say, hey, what would you like in this park? What don't you like about this park? And go from there. So I will look into my notes about the survey information and get back to you on what I have. And I believe that you guys need to really dig into what the neighborhoods want, not just what the committee wanted, because the committee did not talk to the neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Any other citizen participation? All right.
If I may, as a citizen,
Sure.
taking off the other hats that I've worn today, as a citizen, it's come to my attention that a lot of things that are going on in the background are not including all members of the Recreation Commission. And I would encourage all members of Recreation to communicate through the person that you've duly elected as your commissioner, okay, to communicate a lot of these things through the city. And again, it's just come to my attention that has not happened on some of the events that have been planned. And with all due respect to your commissioner and your assistant commissioner, I think everything should be discussed and run through your commissioner. It's just my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Citizen Winawiki. Okay, moving on. Commission members with concerns. We'll start with Commissioner Hunt.
Okay, I don't really have any concerns other than when you get together or you make your subcommittee to talk about the 5-year plan. I would like to be involved in that. And I would hope that it could be in an in-person meeting because this is difficult for me. But also, I just want to say, can we make every park out there accessible to everybody? That's my concern. Because we have all these beautiful parks that there's no parking, or you have to walk to them. And I'm tired of the people that say, well, they were built for the neighborhoods to be used by the neighborhoods. Well, we've all paid for them, so we should all be able to access them. And even in the 5-year plan, I know it was just a wish list and things did get done from that. But like one of the major things on Blanky was accessible parking. And like that was never put in there. And there's a spot. You could easily put a spot for 12 cars right off the side of the road. So that's my, and maybe this is the wrong place for my concern, but that's my concern, is that these parks are not accessible. So
It's not it's the correct place.
Were you saying Blanky or Boris?
Blanky. Well, no, Boris, there's no place either. But Blanky, you have to go on the side street that leads into a dead end to go over, and it's a beautiful park. It's serene. It's got a wonderful walking path, but you have to park at the church or you have to park down the street, across the street. And right alongside on, I think is it Mulvey? Is that the street it's on? I think it's Mulvey.
Yeah.
I think it's Mulvey, yeah.
Yeah, right there between the signs that say no parking here, you could actually put a strip of where people could parallel park right in very easily.
I know at Boris, we've actually talked about it. We have a curb cut off of 14 Mile onto a parcel of land next to that.
Right.
And we've actually talked about a gravel lot there. So that's something we'll be considering in the future. Yeah.
That's cool.
So,
But when I went out to that park with Mark Ragsdale and Thompson and Lesich and Carnegie, that was part of the plan that Mr. Ragsdale had proposed, was to redo the gravel in that lot and put up parking signs.
Yeah.
So as part of that park being completed, I'm not sure why that didn't happen. Maybe that would be something worth looking into.
I've been proposing that for years.
It was supposed to be part of it. So
It's a matter of funding, and it's coming up in future proposals. So.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Hunt. Commissioner Meller.
Excuse me, am I muted? Oh, no, I'm not. Okay, I always do that. I never Zoom. I mute myself. No concerns. I'm happy that the Pompo path has been completed. It looks fantastic. It great for my bike. It's great for walking, and I've seen many people enjoying it. They put thank you for putting the doggy waste little things over there too. That's very helpful. So no, I don't really have any concerns. I thought this was a good meeting. It was fun. It's always nice to, get together and bounce ideas. And I think we've got some good ones, but yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Cook.
I'd like to also be on the 5-year plan committee. I'd like to make that happen too, to see, I kind of read over it and I have some ideas too that we can put in there. Like I said, I'd like to see the park off 14 Mile Road get that parking lot so that other people can actually enjoy that park. Besides that, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, if I'm honest, I kind of like no one's there because I can just walk up there and enjoy it to myself. So. Go ahead, sorry.
So that's all the concerns I really have. Hopefully everything goes well on Thursday and we can get this food truck rally going because I'm excited.
Me too. Thank you, Commissioner Cook. Commissioner Rollins. I had to think about your last name for a second.
I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of being a lazy commissioner. I've had a lot going on at home, but I am going to start making more of an effort to come up with ideas and get more involved in this. But you guys are all doing so great, and it's awesome to see, even if it's a small group, the passion for the community. So thanks to you guys for everything you've been putting into these things. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Rollins. Commissioner Sutherland.
You said that like a drum roll. I really like that. Okay. So Vince, you might be able to help me with my first thing, and I promise it's not a long list.
I'm timing you.
The Little Free Library at Somerset. I haven't seen it, so help me if forgive me if it's already gone up. I reached out to the library to see because council had approved having that put in. And to my knowledge, it's still not up. I tried to reach out to the library to see, what was going on with it, if there's any way that I could help, maybe remove any barriers that were needed. Do you happen to know the status on that Little Free Library?
Council did in fact approve that.
Yes.
Which meeting was it?
It was, what month is this? September. So it wasn't the last one. So it was, I believe it was July. It might have been June, but I'm pretty darn sure it was July because the person from the library came and presented it to us in May. We voted on it and approved it. And then I didn't hear anything. So I had gone to and participated in the council meeting for citizen participation in July, brought it up. They talked about it, voted on it. Yes, it was July. And I had called the library a couple of times and I've left some voicemails, but I haven't heard anything. So I was just wondering if you knew the status on that.
No, I'll have to follow up with the library and then, get the details on what's going on or the status update of it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. The next thing was, so Sherry had talked about the Fraser First Booster Club Community Challenge for the zip line. So this isn't a concern, but I just wanted, so I recently donated. So if anybody out there in the community can donate, I mean, they're so close, they're 14,000. I think Sherry said they already got a couple thousand toward it. So if you have, even if it's $1, right? I mean, this is $1 million park. So if you have the ability to help get this park and bring the zip line in to get it over the goal line, I encourage everybody to do so. So to keep me accountable for my takeaways for the meeting, so I'm going to send Vince accounting for the farmer's market that shows that budget or that ledger difference, right, between what I had previously and what he had proposed. And then I'm also going to create a 5-year plan survey, send it out to the rest of the commission so that we can review it, vote on it at the next meeting. So the only other thing that I had is, to get back to the volunteerism conversation earlier, but don't worry, not going to get too deep into it, is that, I've been working on the farmer's market. Thank the Lord that I've got Hunter because she does an amazing job. And Vince was there last time and helped so much. So thank you so much to Vince too for coming out and doing that. I really appreciate it. But at our last market on October 2nd, we'd really like to have something big and a nice fun event. A couple of us have kicked around having pumpkin Olympics. So if there's anybody who would want to volunteer, Councilman Winowicki, if you'd like to volunteer, we could use a volunteer to head that up and put that together. So if anybody's interested in doing that, please feel free to reach out and let me know because we really need the help.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Sutherland.
Thank you.
I actually don't have any concerns. I had kind of a rough week, so I don't really have any thoughts going on in my head right now. So I hope to be more involved. I'm just waiting for this next couple weeks to pass. I have a funeral. My husband's best friend passed away and Lincoln needs another surgery and my puppy is sick. So I'm just trying to get through all of this week. And then the only good news I had is I became a union steward. So maybe I can, convince.
Ooh, congratulations. Some muscle.
So I can maybe I can convince my union to start doing some volunteer work. So
there you go.
All right, I think that is it. If there are no other concerns, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting at 9:05 PM.
I second it.
I'll
All
take-
right. Motion made by Commissioner Kelly, second and third by Commissioner Cook and Hunt. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, excellent.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 9:05 PM.
All right. Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Bye
Take
bye.
care,
guys.
everybody.
Night,
Take
everybody.
care. You too. Have a good week.
Good evening.
Thank you.